Hi everyone. Nice to be here today. It's kind of my second, third speaking event, so please do be gentle with me. So my name's Ayhan Setirekli. I'm a lead DevOps engineer currently at Cognizant. And today, we'll be working through a solution that I worked on with a customer. It's about enhancing S3 and security within S3 using GuardDuty's new feature, which is called the GuardDuty Malware Protection. So for anyone that doesn't or isn't familiar with GuardDuty or S3, so GuardDuty is AWS's threat detection service that kind of links in with most of their AWS services. For example, CloudTrail, Flow Logs, and EKS lately, and other things. And S3 is AWS's storage solution, so for file uploads in the cloud. So I want to start off with a question. How many of you have, in one way or another, seen a solution been built that works okay, but it's kind of been phased out due to its complexity, or kind of it's been a bit difficult to upkeep or maintain? Just a hands up. Anyone? Yeah. So I've got two words for you, managed services. So AWS is managed services, which is the heavy lifting and little to no maintenance. So as a non-security guy, this was quite a nice service and feature to use because I didn't have to worry too much about that. It kind of like does that nice heavy lifting for you. We'll dive into that and why the kind of lightweight solution could be kind of the way to go, instead of obviously building your own custom solution and paying licenses and integrating that within your systems. So a little bit about me. As I mentioned, work at Cognizant. I've been there since 2018, which is when I started my AWS journey as well, and haven't looked back since. I've also this year I'm an AWS community builder, so I'm trying to do a few more things like this and articles and stuff like that as well. My tech interests include kind of IAC, which we'll see, which is Terraform, and CI/CD, and do some AWS obviously, and trying to get into GCP as well, which I seem to like. Personal interests, so I'm a proud dad. Had a lovely cuddle from my little boy before today because I was feeling a bit nervous, which made me feel better, which is good. I'm a football fan, but don't ask me which team. You might be able to guess. They've got a new stadium coming up in a couple of years. Don't tell me it looks like a circus tent. Please don't. I'm a yoga lover too. Just a little bit about that. So this is the kind of high-level agenda. So we'll work through GuardDuty Malware Protection, an introduction to it, some key features, limitations. We'll also go on to that problem that I told you about when I worked with this client. And then we'll go into the solution I built, along with how it works and tech stack, and a quick kind of look into the AWS console as well, just to show you it in real life, because I've built it in my own account. And then we'll jump onto some of the learnings and Q&A. So this GuardDuty Malware Protection. So it's a feature of GuardDuty that was released back in June 24. So just under a year now. It's had quite a few improvements since then. Notably, earlier this year, quite a huge cost reduction. That might be from feedback from certain customers. So what does it do? So as I mentioned, it's a file-based kind of detection service. It's in real time, so it's for newly uploaded S3 objects that it detects and tries to find the presence of malware. After it does that, it tags objects for you, which kind of looks similar to something like this in an S3 object. There's several statuses that I'll touch on briefly in the next slide. How does it do that? So the terminology here is when you create a malware protection plan within GuardDuty on your particular bucket, so there's a one-to-one mapping, and that bucket then becomes a protected bucket, which is what AWS like to call it. Once you do that, they create kind of a EventBridge rule, which is just basically a listener on your S3 object creation, so they can track that and perform the scans. It's quite interesting thing, the last few points here, which I didn't know before before writing this, which is so what they do is they download the object based on the event. They download the object to a AWS environment, so it's a lockdown VPC, no internet access, and they use Bitdefender. They don't actually have their own service, so they use a third party to scan that file, and then perform the scan and tag the file. So some of the key features. So malware protection is not a new thing for GuardDuty. They did support kind of EBS, which EC2 as well, but they've now added to that bow really with the files. As I mentioned, the operational simplicity, so how easy it is to kind of configure, which I'll show in a minute. So it's, when compared to obviously a custom virus detection solution, be pretty lightweight. It can also be used independently from GuardDuty itself, so you don't really need to enable GuardDuty and incur costs from that angle, so you could just use and leverage the malware protection. It's also, as I mentioned, it's event-driven, so once you turn it on, you can get scan results through EventBridge, and then build some automation off of that if you needed to, which I'll show in a minute as well. So they can be, five different statuses. The main ones are the no threats found, which is files clean, threats found, which is it's some sort of suspicious activity. Unsupported, access denied and failed comes into kind of an errors category that I'll show in a bit. So some limitations before we go on to the solution. So it doesn't, as I mentioned, it's for kind of real-time stuff. It doesn't support on-demand scans, so you can't, if you have any existing files you want to scan, you'll have to re-upload them to scan them. Again, it tags and alerts if you do enable the GuardDuty service to alert, and it doesn't perform any sort of movement of files. It doesn't really provide you with any sort of dashboard or anything of results or anything like that. It just literally just scans the file and tags it and gives you the result, and you can hook into that if you wanted to. So some of the quotas I just briefly mentioned, so max 5 gigabyte files. They don't really have a limitation as to what type of file, they just need to be able to read it. So if there's any sort of password protection or anything, it will come under that kind of errors category or unsupported. So you can enable it for either all objects or several prefixes that you mentioned. So it's a 1-to-1 plan, as I mentioned, 1-to-plan ratio. And the maximum protected buckets you're allowed is 25 in a region at the moment. So we'll move on to what I did in the recent project. So client was a leading UK insurance firm. So what they did is they received kind of customer posts and forms into their vendor. That vendor then SFTP those files into their landing bucket, which then kind of created or triggered the processing of those files. And when I say processing, it's a document classification solution, which then plugged into their internal systems. So before this solution that we're just going to come on to, it's literally vendor would send over a scanner file, it will get processed and classified by the system and plug into those internal systems, and that was that. So obviously you can kind of see where we're going here with the risk. So if anyone infiltrated that SFTP user, they could upload malware or virus files, which would then spread into those internal systems as well, because these get uploaded to those systems. So they wanted to be able to add some sort of level of protection around that. The requirements was to perform the scans, not directly put into a landing bucket to then be directly processed, but we wanted a kind of a landing area or protected area that we wanted to be able to sift through files, check that they were clean, and only then will we then process it. If it wasn't clean, then we'd send an alert or let the support or security team know about kind of looking into that file. So this is where we come onto like the quarantine bucket and an errors bucket as well for the unsupported. So yeah, just working through this. So this particular diagram just shows all the scenarios based on you'll see the statuses here. So no threats found, and I've split them up into kind of landing bucket, which is process it, no threats found, errors bucket, which is those 3 other statuses, and then the quarantine bucket. In the next few slides, I'll just work through each scenario. So this is a good scenario, so no threats found, which would be vendor uploads the file using the SFTP user. That bucket is protected by a malware protection plan. That file gets scanned, tagged. That scan result is then fed into an EventBridge rule that we've set up to listen to GuardDuty scans. That gets published to an SQS queue, which is just a queuing system. Based off of that, we have a Lambda function which gets kicked off. It does some checking on the file, so it does obviously just a status check. Based on the status check, it'll check, again in DynamoDB, it's the config of the mapping of if it's this status, look in here. So in this case, it will be clean, so it'll be like, yep, no threats found, so pop it into the landing bucket. And then it gets processed by the solution. And this is the next one, so threats found, similar start, but we get to kind of the step 2, after the scan. So there'll be GuardDuty finding produced by this because it's malware. I'll also show in a bit an example I produced earlier with a kind of a test virus file that I've used. So yeah, you get that first alert from GuardDuty, which tells you what it found in the file. And then it works through the solution again, but this time obviously moving it into a quarantine bucket as opposed to the landing to be processed. And based on that as well, the Lambda also creates sends an email to the security team to let them know that that file's been archived and kind of like sifted away almost. Similar thing here again with the errors, just kind of differs from the step 3 where GuardDuty doesn't know or doesn't find any, that can't find any issues with it because it can't get to it or other bits. So yeah, this is what I've just worked through, but I've popped it in here for reference. So if I just jump into the console here. Oh, brilliant, I can't see on my screen. Sorry, just make this a bit bigger. Right, this is a SFTP, public SFTP server I've got in here. So there's a user within here, which is my name. It's restricted. It's kind of mapped onto a protected bucket. Based on that bucket, if we just move on to this bit here, I've uploaded, so we've got our 4 different buckets here. So I've uploaded a test file in here. If I just see the versions here, it's already been processed. So I've got 3 tests here, 1 for clean, 1 for password protected, which is that errors scenario, and 1 virus. So if we just jump into the virus here, it's pretty quick, to be honest. Once you upload it, it's really quick, but I've only tested it with these small files in real production. We had about maybe 4 or 5 meg files, which it's still super fast, but haven't really pushed the limits with the 5 gig stuff. So yeah, this is what it looks like in the end. It's quite nice. SFTP kind of gives you that metadata as well, which user uploaded it, which SFTP server it came from, but most importantly the malware scan status that kind of stays with it. So we'll go on to the next bit here, which is the rules. So when you set up that protection plan, I'm just looking at time here, when you set up the protection plan, it creates this managed rule, which you'll see it says do not delete, which I thought was quite funny from GuardDuty. It's a managed one, so it's just one that they put in. So once you enable it, that gets created, and there's 3 other things here. The important one here is the one that gets fed into our queue, which is the scan results, which is just pick up all the results, and then the target would be our SQS queue. So if I jump onto the next tab here, this is our queue, and then based on that queue, it gets triggered our Lambda. So our Lambda would then perform that movement based on the scan result. And then if we head over to here, this is our quarantined bucket, and we'll see that obviously there's the test virus file in here, and it will have the same kind of tags really. How does that look after it's been detected, right? So we talked about two kind of areas of alerting. So we've got one in GuardDuty as a GuardDuty finding, if you've got that enabled, and we've also got the Lambda that produces the alert as well. So just before that, so this is what it kind of looks when you set up a malware protection plan in GuardDuty. It's called a protected bucket. So and you can optionally set tagging up as well, but I don't know why you wouldn't do that anyway. But yeah. So if we jump on to the next thing here, so this is what it actually looks like within the GuardDuty console once it's been detected. So we'll obviously have another rule set up to listen to this and send it to an SNS topic. As you can see, it says it's a nice little thing here where you've got a test virus file, and it does determine that it's not a virus, but it still shows you it, which is quite nice as a sample. So that's what it looks like. So it tells you which bucket it came from and other information, kind of severity and stuff as well about the file. But also the next bit, which is straight from the Lambda, which is just a email to myself saying that threats were found. And this is just to confirm the archival and movement of the file. So for our support team to then look into it and to confirm that, okay, yeah, this is where the actual file's been moved over to. Right, so tech stack. So the way we deployed this was using Terraform. We used these public Terraform modules, kind of based it off that. This customer wanted us to build local modules, so we did within their rule, but we kind of based it off these modules to start with. It's written in Python. GitHub Actions we used to deploy the changes, and yeah, I had to also develop a GitHub action to do the Terraform plan applying and so on forth. So some of my learnings. So the first thing, when we were looking at the metadata and the tags, when we implemented the Lambda, I noticed that some files, not all files, were losing their metadata. So once they'd been moved, you wouldn't be able to tell what the status was of these files or where it came from. I think there's a difference here between the API calls you can use. So we were using the copy object API, which sometimes performs multi-part uploads. So, sorry, the latter. So we use copy instead of copy object. So yeah, copy was using the multi-part uploads, which then loses that nice bit of metadata that we had there. So I had to move over to that. You also need to take into account that within S3, a folder is considered an object, even though it's 0 bytes. So you have to also think about that. And what we didn't get into as well was the post kind of security strategy post virus detection, what you would do. We kind of just put it in place. It was just the first step, but that might be something to look into. One thing as well to watch out for is SFTP servers are really expensive. You can stop an SFTP server, but it doesn't do anything with billing. Why would you ever stop it? It's weird. It's a weird one. I guess if you want to stop the people connecting to it, but I guess it's a bit weird. Good for the environment. It must be. Yeah, that's it. We also had to, because we were creating a folder per user, we had to account for that in the Terraform config as well to ignore the tag changes, because obviously GuardDuty would tag that folder with the status, so that will get a little bit out of touch. Also, when setting up SFTP users, please don't provide private keys to other users. This customer did that, and we had to kind of move them over to do the right thing. So, Q&A. Yeah.
Repeat the question when it ends.
Yeah, cool.
Hey, thanks for the talk. So I have already implemented something similar in the present mission, but one of the issues we came across was testing. So obviously, we've demonstrated a we wanted to automate to make sure that it constantly works, because we kind of, instead of using GuardDuty, which I think we didn't know at the time, we kind of build our own solution with a custom open source antivirus. So we had that we had a need to implement our own integration testing for that kind of end-to-end thing. Did you have the need to implement your own end-to-end testing or not?
As a validation type thing to...
Yeah.
No, we didn't, yeah. So yeah, the question was, they had an extra virus detection solution alongside GuardDuty, is that right? Yeah. As a validation that GuardDuty was working okay? Yeah, does that sound about right?
Are you referring to my...
Yeah, your question.
They didn't use GuardDuty at all. Like, we had to build our own
Okay.
GuardDuty. Our own GuardDuty basically. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we didn't look into that. I think it was just a matter of configuring this. They were quite interested because of how lightweight it was. They didn't want to get into kind of building that kind of whole virus protection solution. I think, yeah, I've seen it elsewhere where you have to pay licenses and you have to configure it and you need people to understand what's going on with configuration, stuff like that. So yeah, they were really interested in having such a lightweight solution just to try it first and see how we got on. But yeah, they seem to...
My question was more about, did you have the need to test it, like in terms of end-to-end testing, automated testing?
In terms of...
Like, for example, in the CI/CD,
Yep.
you constantly validate that your antivirus is working.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Test or something like that.
Yeah, no, we didn't, no. But that's a good idea. I think, yeah, that's a good point. Just to make sure your alerting's working as well. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
One more question, because that one's quite long. Throw the box to the...
Thank you very much. It's a very short question. Why did you need a custom GitHub action? What was wrong with the available one?
Okay. So the question was, why do we need to build a custom GitHub action? So there was a restriction on any public custom actions for this particular customer. They only allowed certain actions to be used. So we kind of went with the option of building our own internal. Sorry?
Reinventing the wheel?
Oh yeah. Painfully. It was the same thing with the public modules, right? I was like, yeah, I want to use these public modules. No, you can't use them. Yeah.
All right, thanks for your questions, folks. Thank you, Ayhan.
Thanks, everyone.